Hello everyone, and welcome back. Last time on the Red Alert Infantry Only saga, we caught up with our old friends the Soviets to help them out with their resistance after their crushing defeat in the main game. But who likes being a loser? Not me, I'm a winner, so this time I'm instead going to be checking in on the victorious allies to see just what they've been getting up to after that whole war business was through. Can you beat Command & Conquer Red Alert 3 Uprising with Infantry Only, Allies Edition? As always, here are the rules for you. Number 1, I can only use or utilize units created from the barracks building. There are a few exceptions to this though, those being transports, base creation / expansion vehicles, and for the allies specifically, dolphins. I'm also going to be allowing minimal use of cryocopters since they're a literal requirement for part of the campaign, so without them the challenge is kind of dead on arrival. Number 2, if for any reason I'm forced to use or make a non-infantry unit, I can, however, only up until I have an infantry unit to replace it with, at which point the unit must be destroyed with friendly fire or moved to a position where it can't affect the battle. And number 3, this isn't any difficulty challenge. I'll try to beat the campaign on hard, but when I inevitably need to, I can lower the difficulty down. This is quite a short campaign, even more so than the Soviets, having only 3 missions, but even then, I'm not expecting this to be a cakewalk. I have no experience with this campaign, so I really don't know what I'm getting into, but given how brutal the Soviets missions got, I'm anticipating this one to knock me around a lot. But who knows, maybe I'm worrying myself over nothing. How about we find out? So, can you beat Red Alert 3 Uprising with Infantry Only? We start out catching up with the Allies' post-war effort from our old friend Eva. Since the defeat of the Empire, we've been occupying Japan to keep them in line, however, it's not been going very well. While the new Emperor Tatsu has been cooperating with the Allies, some of their former commanders don't know when to call it quit and have been raising chaos in the regions that they control. The effort is being led by Shinzo, an old schooler who refuses to accept Tatsu's rule, remaining loyal to the late Emperor. Obviously, we don't want this to blow up into a whole nother war, so we're being sent in to nip it in the bud before it can escalate. Starting out this mission, we have to escort an MCV to its unpacked location, and straight up out the gate, this was a hellish endeavour. We're not given much in the way of a force to protect the MCV, and a good portion of it is vehicles, which if you've been paying attention, you'll know that we can't use. All of these multi-gunners are being manned though, so before you get rid of them, make sure to disembark all of the crew inside for a few more soldiers to work with. As we move forward, you'll want to watch out for some tank busters lying in wait, as if you can see them early, you can start attacking them before they pop out to attack the MCV. In general, while our goal here is to protect the MCV, I found the best strategy was to actually wait for enemies to target it before moving my soldiers in on them, since they wouldn't divert their attacks once locked onto the MCV, and my soldiers are a lot more fragile. After the first wave of attacks, you'll want to have your javelins garrison this building, with your peacekeepers standing behind it, as the enemy's going to be sending some mecha-tangas at us who can absolutely rip through our forces if unprotected. I'd also recommend using your engineer special ability to turn into a medic tent here to keep any soldiers who might have taken a few hits nice and healthy. Once this wave is cleared, it's probably a good idea to make a save as well, since the next few assaults are way harder to survive. There's a pretty big enemy force further up, and if we try to fight it directly, we're basically destined to lose, so once again we're going to be using the MCV as a bit of a shield. A lot of the Imperial warriors here will actually put themselves right in the path, meaning our MCV can get rid of most of this force, and we even get some reinforcements here to help out with the stragglers. The MCV will likely be in pretty rough shape after this though, and there's still one final challenge to overcome. The rest of the path is guarded by small groups of mecha-tangas, and while the MCV will run over them since they're directly in its path, there's no way it'll be able to tank their attacks long enough to get through all of them, so you'll want to do your best to clear the path before they can target the MCV. As soon as the MCV is safe, you'll want to rush your remaining forces into the area where our new base is going to set up and have them use friendly fire commands on this bridge here. I know that sounds strange, but trust me. A large group of tanks attacks our base from this bridge, basically as soon as it sets up, so by destroying it early, you can foil this assault before it even begins. As the mission goes on, you might want to destroy the rest of the bridges as well, as the location of our base is extremely vulnerable, with attacks able to come from all sides, so by destroying these bridges leading into our base, we can narrow their ability to attack us down to just a couple of locations, and if we do need them later, we can always recapture them with engineers to build them back up. Before the next phase begins, I also have my engineers capture a couple of the observation posts, and once I've destroyed the bridge, I move my forces towards the water access to our base, since that's the next area attacks will be coming from. Once our MCV is unpacked, we get a cutscene showing off our first new unit for the Allies, the Harbinger gunship, a super powerful plane that can make quick work of anything thrown at it, but obviously I'd have to stretch pretty hard to call this thing infantry, so before it can help out with my base defense at all, I send it off to the back corner of the map with my multi-gunners, and when a crew of cryocopters shows up, I do the same to them. You can start using your multi-gunners to destroy all of this air support, but I just leave it for now, since your attention is probably going to be more needed for base defense at the moment. As soon as you can start repairing your construction yard, you'll want to do so, since after all the damage it's taken in MCV form, it'll likely only be a couple hits away from death. Sell off any air bases that the game gives you and use that cash to start pumping out soldiers, mainly focusing on javelins but with some peacekeepers as well to handle any shinobi that get sent at us. You should also start building some base defenses around your base and garrisoning them with javelins to up their firepower. You can also garrison a few with peacekeepers I guess to help with the previously mentioned shinobi, but most of what the enemy will be throwing at us are vehicles, which peacekeeper defenses will be worthless against. This is when things start to get really messy, as like I mentioned, our base is in a terrible location and underneath a constant attack, making it hard to build up a force since all your time and resources will be going towards just keeping your base alive. It becomes especially hard when not long in, the enemy starts sending Naginata cruisers at us, able to pummel our forces and our base from well outside of my infantry's reach. Sometimes the enemy AI does stupidly move them into my infantry's range, but if they don't, the only aquatic unit I can train to counter them is a Tanya, and she's a pretty big monetary investment considering there's only one ore mine I can reasonably control. I'd recommend making frequent saves anytime something goes right, since likely chance is you're going to need to reload over and over and over and over again, and you don't want to be losing too much progress each time. While you try and work up your forces, you can also start picking away at the enemy's critical structures with commander abilities. If you can manage to get troops close enough to clear the fog of war around their main base in the southeast, just enough so that you can see their reactors, you'll find that Shinzo has been kind enough to group them together for us, and by freezing them with a cryo shock and using a surgical strike, you can take out tons of them at once. Repeat this enough times and you'll be able to knock out power to their main base defenses, which is when the tide of battle really started to turn. With no defenses to protect them, I was able to move in Tanya with a team of javelins for support and wipe this base off the face of the map, significantly curbing the attacks on my own base. From here on out, the last few structures could be easily destroyed with commander abilities. Even though Shinzo's forces have been crippled, we're not done here yet, as the man himself is still at large. He's currently held up in his ancestral manor, which we're given orders to freeze rather than destroying to capture him alive. This is why I specified in the rules that I'd be allowing minimal use of the cryocopters, since outside of them, we have no way of freezing this house at the moment. Even if we spec into the third version of Cryoshock, it still won't do the trick. I didn't know this going into the mission, so I had the cryocopters the game gave me destroyed, so I had to make an airfield and take the time to pump out a couple more of the things. This did at least give me time to bulk up my forces more and use them to clear a path to Shinzo's house, so once my copters were ready, they could come in without fear of being destroyed. Even once his crib is all cold, we're not done, as Shinzo attempts to make a break for it in a camouflage transport hidden amongst a group of identical vehicles. We have to use our copters to chase them down and try and freeze the right one. This isn't really all that hard. There's only 6 of them and you have 3 minutes to find the right one, so as long as your copters don't get taken out before they can catch the transports, we can finally put an end to Shinzo's little rebellion. Ava congratulates us for our victory over Shinzo, saying that we haven't lost our touch since the war. While Shinzo's armies have now sworn fealty to Tatsu, there's still others who remain rebellious. Our next target is Kenji, who Tatsu warns us is more willing to embrace the ways of modern warfare, making him a much more deadly threat than the old man of tradition that was Shinzo. Kenji's main base is being protected by numerous nanoswarm shields, making it near impossible to penetrate, meaning our first goal here is to destroy the buildings providing him these shields. These sections are pretty uneventful, as we're given different small teams of troops to take out each of the nanoswarm hives, shielding Kenji's main base, and since the game never gives us any vehicles to work with, there's nothing really to talk about here. Once the shields are down, the real fight can begin, as our main base rolls in and unpacks. After the hell that the last mission put me through, I was expecting this one to be even worse, but to my surprise it was actually way easier. Our position here is way more defendable, only really having one direction that we can be attacked from, meaning we can focus all our resources on defending that one area. We also have more ore mines easily accessible to us, meaning funding isn't as big of an issue, especially if you make a few engineers to capture the nearby oil derricks, meaning we can amass a pretty massive force pretty easily. This mission also gives us access to a new unit I was very excited to try out, the Cryo Legionnaire. These dudes were an absolute pain to deal with in my Soviets run, so I was looking forward to getting to play around with them myself, but honestly, given my preferred playstyle of building up an overwhelming force that can quickly dispatch anything the enemy sends at us, these guys didn't really get a chance to shine too much. Well, just yet at least. While I continued to bulk up my army, I sent a team of engineers with some javelins and peacekeepers for protection to go fix up some of the bridges in the area to complete the bonus objective. This also gives Tatsu the ability to send me some reinforcements. The first lot of these reinforcements are some King Oni, which we can't use, but the second bridge does lead to some Imperial forces we actually get to command. The 2 areas that these bridges lead to also house more oil derricks, and since the enemies barely seem to pass this way, I decided that it was safe to move more engineers in to capture these to bring resources in even faster. With that done, I sent the units that had been guarding the engineers along with the reinforcements I got to clear a path to the enemy's base, and once done, I had them garrison some of the buildings on the path to deal with any units that Kenji continued to send from my base. I then started to move forward the rest of my forces and had them also garrison these buildings, and once all the buildings in the area were full, I began to rally my army around them. While my forces continued to build, I captured the nearby production buildings to complete that bonus objective, selling off the Mecha Bay but keeping the dojo to further increase my production. The entire time I'd been doing all of this, I'd slowly been picking away at the base defenses surrounding Kenji's main base with commander abilities, meaning at this point the force I built up was kind of overkill, as they couldn't really offer up any defense as my army moved in to completely wipe him off the map. We're not done yet though, as Kenji makes a retreat in a specialized King Oni, and due to the activation of a tech inhibitor, we're forced to use a small force airdropped in to take him down. Or I think that's what the game intends, but when the map shrunk down, a lot of my force was in the confines of this new map, meaning they got carried over into this segment. It would probably be easier to just overwhelm the enemy with this army, but I decided that I wanted to do this the intended way, since it would let me play around with the Cryo Legionnaires a little. Between us and Kenji, there's a boatload of infantry, and what we're meant to do is slowly move forward the Legionnaires and Tanya that the game gave us to freeze them in place so Tanya can easily dispatch them, and since I don't have a massive army to just kill all these dudes before they can get frozen, the Legionnaires actually get a chance to shine here. It's super satisfying immobilizing all these dudes, then watching them crumble as Tanya one-shots them. It's It's also kind of hard, as if you're not careful, it's easy for Tanya to get overwhelmed by the vast swarms of infantry here and go down, but after a few attempts I was able to take down the tech inhibitor and freeze Kenji, making him helpless as he was teleported away straight into a cell. With two of the rebellious former commanders taken care of, Japan is almost once again at peace, but we still have one final bad apple to take care of, a new face to the lineup, Takara. Yeah, I was expecting Naomi would be the final rebellious commander, being the only remaining co-commander from the base game not to make an appearance yet, but I guess her actress didn't want to return, so they had to invent a new character to fill the gap in the lineup. Starting out this mission, we're given an MCV and some forces and told to clear an area for it to set up. We're given some of the new allied artillery, the pacifiers, to help out with this, but we also get a handful of cryo-legionnaires, meaning since we technically have an infantry unit, we can't use the pacifier. The cryo-legionnaires are able to take out infantry on their own by freezing them, then using their ground pound ability to shatter them, but this won't work against tanks, so our only means to deal with them is to use our MCV to crush them. The game gives us two suggested areas to unpack, and while I'd recommend the one to the east, it's still a good idea to clear out all the enemies at both locations, since once our base is unpacked, any remaining enemy units at the other location will rush in to try and take us out. While I cleared out both locations, I managed to earn two top secret protocols, which I spent on a surgical strike and a time bomb. I used these to quickly blow up the bridge leading from our base towards Takara to help ebb the flow of attacks while I built up my base and bulked out my forces. From here, honestly, this battle goes pretty smoothly. Using protocols, we can easily knock out power to Takara's base, making her psionic decimator useless and making it pretty easy to sweep through and take her out. She will try and build new power plants, so make sure you keep knocking them out to keep power off to her base defenses. Make sure to keep a few javelins back at base for defense, especially from the Naginata cruisers that make their way downstream, since if not dealt with quickly, they can do some serious damage. You'll want to not destroy her base entirely though, just cripple it enough to make it a non-threat. This gives us as much time as we need to further bulk up our forces and base defenses, which you'll want to do since even after Takara is defeated, we're not done with this fight yet. Turns out Tatsu was just biding his time, pretending to go along with our occupation to get rid of all of his competition, and with them all gone, all that's left to do is expel us from his land. For the most part, Tatsu's army isn't too much of a threat, with one big exception in the form of the new Rising Sun superweapon, the Giga Fortress. This thing can swap between a mobile naval fortress and this sinister ass looking floating head mode. This thing can absolutely annihilate our forces in an instant if you aren't careful. They do have one weakness though, in that they're vulnerable to attacks from the rear, so if you can get enough javelins in behind them, they can take them out pretty effectively. As long as you can deal with all the Giga Fortresses Tatsu throws at us, this final segment is surprisingly easy. I had taken the time to build a proton collider and load up a shot before triggering Tatsu's betrayal, meaning I could instantly launch it to knock out most of his critical infrastructure. It did get a little tight on funds towards the end, making it hard to build up enough of a force to deal the final blow, but with enough time, the last building fell, once again setting the Rising Sun. With Tatsu's ambitions crushed, Japan is finally fully brought under the control of the Allies. Eva thanks us for our efforts, and with that, the campaign is brought to an end. Kind of an anticlimactic ending, but hey, it's a DLC. So, can you beat Red Alert 3 Uprising with Infantry Only? Hell yeah you can. Honestly, this was way easier than I was expecting. The only mission here that really gave me any hassle whatsoever was weirdly enough the first one. I even managed to do the whole thing on hard for the first time, which was a real shock. Whatever though, I'm not complaining. Sure, a hard challenge is more satisfying to conquer, but every now and then it's nice to have a quick, easy breezy run through. This does make me wonder what the Empire's campaign is going to be like, since usually it would be the hardest, but if this trend keeps up, it'll probably end up being the easiest. But I guess we'll have to wait till next time to find that out. In the meantime, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, why not like it, and if you want to see more like it, I have a whole bunch on my channel, so how about heading over there and tossing me a sub. Sorry that this video was a lot shorter than my usual ones, but it's a short campaign, so not much I can really do there. Until next time, I've been Katie Cat, and thank you for watching.